Stories Unlocked is a podcast for everyone and anyone. Each week, hosts Ari George and Selina Nguyen have open and honest conversations with key personalities aimed to inspire, educate and entertain listeners, acting as a conduit between everyday people and names of individuals we all aspire to be. Listen to our podcast with an open mind as you prepare to take notes, laugh, cry and feel inspired to be the best version of yourself. This week, we're honoured to share the inspiring story of two-time world champion boxer Billy Dib. Starting from humble beginnings in Sydney, Australia, Billy's journey to the top of the boxing world was marked by hard work, dedication, and a relentless drive to succeed. But his biggest fight was yet to come, a battle with cancer that would test him in ways he never could have imagined. He fought his invisible opponent with the same ferocity and grit that he brought into the ring, inspiring those around him to keep pushing forward even in the darkest of times. So join us as we celebrate the power of the human spirit, the resilience of the human heart, and unlock the incredible story of Billy Dib.
And we're live for our next episode of Stories Unlocked. Billy Dib, thank you for coming in. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me, man.
And
Pleasure to be here.
very good. We know it's day one of Ramadan.
That's right.
How you feeling?
I feel good, man. I feel good. I really shouldn't be fasting, but I am anyway.
Good on you. Good on you. I can't wait. Let's get stuck into it.
Let's do it.
So, Billy, take us as long as you can remember back. What was it like growing up in the Dib household?
Man, I remember as far back as maybe 3 years of age. I remember when the family moved to Engadine, and my father bought a greengrocer. So that's how far I can remember back. I remember my brothers, my siblings, my brother Jihad, Ahmad, Muhammad, Nasser, and then my sister Sabrina was born as my dad purchased that store.
Wow.
So we moved there as a family, and Dad established us in Engadine. And we grew up in this not a bad home, and greengrocer right in front of it, and it was good times. It was definitely good times. We had a lot of laughs. There was a lot of us in the house, which was fun. We always argued over who was going to open the shop and all that stuff, but that didn't obviously happen until later in life. But at the start, my brothers were looking after this store with my dad, and then you start Engadine public schools where I started my schooling.
Wow.
My brothers had already gone through the school. My brother Jihad and Ahmad were, I think, well into their high school days by then. But I went to school. My brother Nasser was, I think, 2 years ahead of me.
Very good. And your father, was he born in Australia? He came from overseas?
No, my father was born in Lebanon.
Okay.
And he came to Australia in the 1970s. And he didn't just come by himself. He brought his whole family over. When I say his whole family, I'm talking his brothers and his sister, his mum and dad, and everybody moved over to Australia, except for I think one of my aunties. She moved to Ghana.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what made him want to move to Australia?
It was just an opportunity to start a new life, I guess. It's times in Lebanon were very difficult, and I think at the time there was an opportunity to move the family over. My dad took it, and my dad told me this story about when he was leaving Lebanon and bringing the whole family to Australia. People at the airport were clapping for him, because he's taking the big plunge of moving his whole family to a country that don't know how to speak the language well. It was a big culture shock for them,
It would have been.
But my dad was a very resilient person, and he still is, and he took the plunge, and it turned out to be a successful move.
There you go. And when he arrived to Australia, did he get straight into, was it business or was it?
Well, my father was, he was, from what I understand, he was an accountant or studying to be an accountant, So, but then he come to Australia, obviously you just got to work, So they're working in a factory. Him and his brothers were working in a factory, like a can factory, making canned foods. So they were in the factory for years, from what Dad tells me, and things started to progress. Then my uncle bought a store, and then my dad bought a store, and they started venturing off doing their own things. So I think my dad was made the decision to move us to Engadine because he wanted us to get away from our current surroundings, and he wanted us to learn a little bit of customer service and how to deal with people, how to engage with humans, with other humans. You know what I mean? Like, so not just with your own kind. You know what I mean? So like my dad wanted us to be diverse in that regard, and luckily for us, you know, it wasn't an easy move, but it was a good move in the long run.
Good stuff. And tell me, so again, it was 4 brothers, 1 sister?
No, we're 5 brothers and 1 sister.
5 brothers, 1
I got
sister.
5 brothers and 1 sister. Yeah.
And you're the second youngest?
I'm the third youngest.
Third youngest.
Yeah.
And all the brothers, was there ever a bit of a competition in the household? Was it?
Always.
Always?
Always. And now I think competition's healthy, you know what I mean? Keeps you on your toes. But my brother Jihad was you know, a very educated young man, and very switched on and had big dreams, and you know, he went on to become a principal. Now he's a politician. You know, my brother Ahmad was more the business-minded guy. Same with my brother Muhammad. Then Nasser was just you know, I don't know what he was. He was just a movie guy growing up. You know, he just loved to watch movies. You know, and then he got into the police force, and then later became partners with my brother MD. Then you had me. I was a bit of an athlete. You know, I mean, I just love sport. I didn't do too bad at school, but you know, I was more interested in sport. Anytime that, you know, there was an opportunity to do sport, I was all in.
So before you're a young kid, before you've gone into school, were you into sport back then?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, you know, growing up as a young kid, I had brothers, you know what I mean? My older brothers used to watch Rocky movies. They used to watch Karate Kid, all of these cool movies. And I used to be like, man, that's cool. That's what I want to do, you know what I mean? So, like, I remember my dad put us in karate classes and, you know, all that stuff. And we did a bit of football and basketball. And we loved basketball as kids. We were basketball fanatics. We loved the game of basketball. You know, that was the era of Michael Jordan, Orlando Magic, which had Shaquille O'Neal and Anthony Hardaway. You had Hakeem Olajuwon, all these amazing players, you know what I mean? And we were so deep into basketball, and basketball cards was a big thing back then. So we used to collect the cards, and my dad used to sell them in the store. So, you know, we used to often just take the cards and open them up and get the cards out and stuff, which was really, really cool. Like when people talk about their upbringing, my upbringing was pretty cool. It was a really, really cool time, you know what I mean? I was very close to my siblings. We had good laughs. We had good times. You know, obviously we fought every now and then as well. You know, we'd get the gloves out and beat each other up, and then Mum would come in and give us the little slap around. You know what I mean? Pull your heads in. But in general, it was a really good time.
Lovely. And all right, we're in public school.
Yeah.
Were you the popular kid?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all, man. I don't know if you know this, but in Engadine it was predominantly Anglo-white back in that time.
Sure.
So we were this family that stood out like a sore thumb, you know what I mean? We're brown hair or black hair, brown eyes, brown skin, you know, so we'd get into fights often at school, you know, and I remember my childhood at home was cool, but my childhood at school was like not so cool, you know what I mean? I remember one vivid story was we were in, I think, year 3, and the teacher said, we're going to walk to the library today. And the library was outside of school. It wasn't like too far, but we're going to walk to this library, and I want everyone to hold hands with a partner. Nobody wanted to hold hands with me.
Wow.
No one, like, it was just like people feared what was different, you know what I mean? It's like, I didn't blame them, but, you know, when you got a kid who's got black hair, brown eyes, olive skin, you know, like, I look different to the other kids, you know what I mean? So kids fear what's different. That's just how it is.
Sure. And back then, I mean, tell us about your emotions when you kind of didn't really have, you know, friends to lean on back then. Did you like going to school? You got a bit of anxiety? Tell us about that.
I wasn't really worried about leaning on people because I had my brothers to lean on.
Okay.
You know? And when I say that, I mean, like, my brothers didn't put up with any trash. You know what I mean? If somebody was treating me not so well, my brothers were going to deal with it. And, you know, I wasn't too concerned about all of that. You know what I mean? I wasn't happy to go to school. I wasn't a very pleasant place, but, you know, slowly you start to win people over. And, you know, I had a couple of good friends here and there. And one of my good friends was James Lovell, who I've been friends with since we were kids. Until today, we're still, like, very, very close, you know, like, never parted ways, always remained friends. And he was one of the guys that would often stick up for me at school. And, you know, my dad had this thing about treating kill them with kindness. We're going to kill them with kindness. And, you just be kind, and eventually you'll turn them over and you'll turn them around, and, they'll start to gravitate towards you guys. And that's exactly what happened. As time progressed, things started to change. And, there was good days and bad days. I'm not going to say every day was a bad day, because there was plenty of good times. You have a laugh and that, but every now and then when someone would break out, somebody want to pick on somebody, I was the guy that was getting picked on. It's like, do you want to play? Okay, if you want to play, then you're the one that's got to be on the wall. Do you want to play? Okay, well, I never got the chance to, for example, if we're playing handball, I never got the chance to start first. Nah, you got to wait in line, It was like, nobody ever gave me a go. I had to get it myself. I remember one story where there was this guy on a bus, and we used to catch the bus home, and this guy was just a racist, and he grabbed me and he wouldn't let me off the bus for like 3 stops after my stop. And, my mum and dad were worried, like the bus had stopped, I didn't get off, what's happened to our son, My siblings were a little bit worried as well. And then I eventually ran home and was crying when I arrived at home. My brother said, don't worry about it, I'll deal with it tomorrow. And it's my brother Muhammad. And the next day when I was on the bus, my brother Muhammad got on the bus, and the bus driver was like, mate, you're not allowed on the bus. And my brother was like, mate, you better hold on a second, He went to the back of the bus and he grabbed the guy and he smashed him. And the guy never did it ever again, But that was just the kind of way that we had to deal with that at the time. You couldn't talk with these people. It was like, if you either deal with it physically or it doesn't get dealt with at all.
I know Muhammad's going to be watching this podcast, and shout out to Muhammad. He's going to love that. Yeah, he's going to love that. Good on him.
He beat that guy right up. He never did it ever again. My brothers were my heroes when I was a kid, There's some, they're still my heroes till today, Like the way they've, achieved in their lives, And my brother Muhammad just, mate, he was our protector when we were kids, mate. He didn't take no rubbish.
Makes me feel happy. I've known Muhammad for a number of years now. But
yeah.
That's awesome. Now, okay, public school, you into academics at all?
I was doing okay. Okay. I was doing okay at school,
What were you into?
I was, I was into woodwork, things like that. I was into physical things. I like to do woodwork, and I wasn't super clever when it came to maths and English. Now I did just enough to get by, and that was until I went to high school. When I went to high school, that all changed because my dad sort of discovered that when I found boxing, and my dad discovered I loved boxing so much.
And was that from public school, or just kind of, when did that kind of start?
That transition of public school to high school was when I found boxing.
And what made you kind of gravitate towards boxing out of all the sports?
It wasn't that I gravitated towards it, it's that I just found it by accident. Boxing was something that was brought to me by accident. And I remember the first day that I ever walked into a boxing gym, I just saw the surroundings, saw what was going on in the ring. 2 guys beating the hell out of each other, no one stopping the fight. I thought, this is exactly what I want to do.
And you stumbled across, so to tell us about that.
Yeah, so I stumbled across boxing. It was something that just happened by accident. I was at the footy training because dad had enrolled us in footy training, and we're doing a bit of football. I was playing for Bosco Bulldogs at the time, and the trainer pulled out some mitts and some pads, and basically I put the gloves on. I just started hitting him before the trainer started the session, and he sort of recognized the talent, and he was like, mate, have you ever boxed before? And I said, nah, but I've watched loads of Rocky movies. That was exactly what I said to him, and he goes, listen, I'm not sure about your footy career, but I think you found something in boxing. Because I know a little something about boxing. He goes, get your dad to take you to the Southern PCYC. I was just a little guy.
Wow.
I was little, but I was a bit chubby at the time. And my dad, I went home, told my dad that the footy trainer recommended that if I wanted to be the next Mal Meninga, because my dad was a big Mal Meninga fan, that I needed to go to the boxing gym and do a bit of training. So I convinced my dad. He sent me to.
You twisted it.
I did. Because the thing is that you have to understand, there was 5 boys and 1 girl in our household. You could imagine the fights that were going on. My dad wasn't going to give me no edge. I wasn't going to get no edge over these guys. Put the gloves on and stuff, Anyhow, we went. Me and my dad went for a drive to Southern PCYC. Dad gave me $1 coin. I had the gloves on already. I walked upstairs, knocked on the door with my elbow. Trainer opened the door. Says, "Who are you?" I said, "My name's Billy Dib, and I'm here to box." I was sent by Mr. Carpenter, and mate, he just looked at me and sort of smiled. Why you got your gloves on for? And I said, well, I'm here to fight. I'm here to box. And he goes, well, have you learned anything about skipping, shadow boxing, and all? I was like, I don't know nothing about that. I just want to fight. And I was like, I want to do whatever them two are doing. They're in the ring beating each other up. And he's like, mate, you got to learn how to do all that. And yeah, the transition into boxing was quick. You know what I mean? And the love for the sport was like an overnight love. It was like love at first sight.
And is this year 8, year 7?
Year 7.
Year 7.
Yeah.
Wow. There you go. And tell us about your high school years. Did you get into to other sports? Tell us about that.
High school was cool, man. It was obviously I had a lot of tough times as well. You know, I mean, got into a lot of fights. But once what I did was I actually told the principal, because I was getting into fights at school and stuff. You know, and I said to the principal, listen, I said, I'm going to be fighting at the Sutherland PCYC very soon. I said, can I put up some posters around the school and try to get some support from the kids and that? Anyway, I ended up fighting at Sutherland PCYC and everybody from the school turned up. It was chock-a-block. Everyone come and see what was this hype train. You know, no one want to see, could he really fight? And I fought, and you know what? After that, I pretty much had everyone's respect. So it made things a lot easier. I still got into fights because people wanted to test the waters. But I was the type of person who I'd never fight in front of people. Like, so if you picked on me, I'd give you the opportunity to, let's go talk about it around the corner. You know, you and I one-on-one, no one else, because I don't want to embarrass you in front of anybody. I was not my thing was like, I don't want to take advantage of people in front of other people. You know what I mean? Like, I know I can beat you up, but I'm not going to do it in front of people and embarrass you. So I just walk around the corner, I'd give them a little hit in the stomach, and that'd be over. You know what I mean? That's all it was. That happened a few times, you know what I mean? So like, I would never hit anybody in front of like their friends or anything like that, you know what I mean? Then that person would come out crying like, oh, he hit me. You know, like, mate, you were the one that asked for it, you know what I mean? You asked for it.
You know what's funny, Billy? You're telling me this, and it's you've got the friendly smile, you got the friendly guy look, and the two personas. That's awesome. That's awesome.
That was cool, man. I was you know, but I got through it. And in regards to other sports and that, obviously, you know, I wanted to take part in anything and everything, you know. And so there was basketball teams, there was football teams, there was soccer teams, and I just wanted to play sport. Anything to get out of class, man. But my dad had this rule, and his rule was that if I didn't get good results in school, then he'd take me out of boxing. So basically, I went from the back of the class to the front of the class. No joke, that's exactly how it went. Like, I went from being the school clown to a complete nerd sitting at the front of the class. But what that did is that helped my results, because I started seeing my academics go up. You know what I mean? I went from like just passing to getting 70, 75, 80%, which was pretty cool, because you know what? Kids are very mean, man. So like, when you just pass, everyone's like, you just passed. You're lucky you just passed. You know what I mean? When you're scoring 70s and 80s, like, oh yeah, I got 80%. Oh, like, oh, wow, that's pretty good. You know, that's awesome. You know what I mean? So like, obviously, all of a sudden, that started to help as well. You know, so my dad was pretty clever in that regard. And they had a report card at school, and the report card would tell you that you were unsatisfactory, satisfactory, good, excellent. And my dad was like, if you get anything under good, you don't go into boxing on that day. And that happened a few times, and my dad was like, there's no boxing today. I'm like, Dad, please, I want to let that, nah. I know you're not going to let it happen again, but I can't let you go to boxing today.
Tough love.
That was tough love, man. But in the end, it worked out. It really, really did work out.
Very good. And you see athletes in all kind of sports. There's kind of those two types of athletes out there. There's those athletes that were never really naturally gifted, but they work their ass off. And then you've just got those athletes, day one, they will just stand out. What were you? When you first started boxing, were you that kid that had to work for it, or did you just have that in you?
Man, I was just a natural. I was a natural, but I never took advantage of that. I had very good hand speed. I had great eyes. I could see the punches coming. I was elusive. I had decent pop, but I never took advantage of any of that. Because my whole thing was that you're 1 second, and you're one punch and 10 seconds away from disaster. So like, I wanted to always work extremely hard, because I wasn't a sore loser, but I hated losing. I didn't want to lose. When I lost, I would cry. I wouldn't get upset at people. I would just cry to myself. Can't believe I let that happen. And so from a young age, I knew that hard work and dedication meant victory. You know what I mean? So like I was willing to leave no stone unturned to make sure that I was ready. I didn't care if I was fighting a guy that had one win and 100 losses. It didn't matter to me. To me, that meant he still had a chance to beat me. You know what I mean? So like I always worked extremely hard and left no stone unturned.
Well, that's a combination because it's so often, you get that individual that's just talented, and because they're talented and naturally, physically just there, they become complacent. But you had that talent, and then you stacked it with the hard work and dedication. So that's what it takes.
The thing is, man, is that I don't think you're going to get many fighters who are super talented who don't put in work, because boxing is not a sport you can rely on anybody. You know, if you're a talented footballer, you might take a little bit of a rest and whatever, or a talented soccer player or cricket player. But in boxing, it's one-on-one. So if you've not prepared well enough, you're going to get checked. You're going to get checked for sure, you know what I mean? Like the guy's going to test you, you know what I mean? Especially if you're up against somebody that can fight. Because in a world title fight, I'm just giving an example. I was in a few world title fights. It's a 50-50 fight. Because you're talented, but the guy's there for a reason. He's just as talented as you. So it just comes down to how much more determination you have. And for me, from a really, really young age, I had this whole thing about my vision. My vision was so clear. I remember walking into the gym and seeing like the surroundings of the gym and just, you know, like I just scoped the whole thing out, and I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. So what I did was I worked out exactly what it took to get to the top, and I worked out that you had to run every day, you had to train hard every day, you had to eat well, you had to get your rest, you know what I mean? You had to make sacrifices, and I did all of that. So I was ticking all of the boxes. So, okay, I had the vision. I knew what the vision was. And then I worked out what I needed to do to have that vision become a success. The consistency that I needed to put in. So I put vision, then the consistency, the approach was every single day, repeat, sleep, eat, repeat, sleep, eat, repeat. And then in the end, when I won that world title and I arrived at the top of the mountain, I was like, okay, I've achieved the success.
Beautiful. And then we bring it back. When was you come out of school, what's going on? So school's officially over. You know, your father had yourself, you know, there, you had to get results there. What's going on?
I remember when I was a kid, I would often travel to like the state titles, Australian titles and things like that, you know, and so I'd miss out on a few days from school here and there. And I remember when I was just a young kid, I was in year 10 and I went to the Australian Championships, and they were in Hobart, Tasmania, and I fought for the Australian title and I won.
In year 10?
Yes.
Wow.
I fought for the Australian title in year 10. And that made me, at that point I was a 2-time Australian champion. So
from year 10, wow.
Yeah, so I had one to get at that point. I had fought for 3 Australian titles. So it's not like a title that you fight for. It's like you go to a tournament, you know, each state's got a fighter, you know, this state fights that fighter, and then it's like a round robin, and then whoever gets knocked out, whoever gets beaten is out of the tournament till you arrive at the final, and then whoever wins the final is a champion. That happened to me on 3 occasions. So on the 3rd time, I'll never forget it. I was in Hobart and I won the Australian title. I beat a guy from Perth, and I beat another kid from South Australia. And you know, there was another kid that was there. His name was Wayne. I think he's something Parsons. I think might have been Wayne Parsons, and God rest his soul, he committed suicide. Now he's no longer with us. But he was the favorite, and I was like, why they put him as the favorite? I'm gonna kill him. You know what I mean? Anyway, he ended up getting beat by South Australia. And then I went in and dominated South Australia. I won the Australian title. And then I remember there was a coach there who was the Australian coach, the national coach. His name was Coach Bodo. I was 16 years old. And I saw Coach Bodo. He was on the side of the ring taking notes and things like that. And I walked up to him and I said, Coach, I really need to talk to you. Could I have 5 minutes of your time? He was a very, very serious guy, German. Very serious. Didn't take no rubbish. I said, Coach, I know I'm only 16. But I know that selection for the Australian Institute of Sport is coming up. Please, Coach, consider me. I really want to do it. Coach, it's my dream to become an Olympic champion, to represent Australia. And I know that with you as my trainer and with your help, I can get there, please. And he told me, but you're too young. And I was like, I'm going to be turning 17 very soon. Please, I'm begging you could just take me, you know. Anyhow, time passed. I'm still in year 10 now. And then I get the phone call from Coach Bodo, and he basically welcomed me to the AIS, and he said to me, if your parents are okay with it, we'd like to have you at the AIS, and you live in Canberra, and you'd be under our guidance and stuff like that. And I was like, mate, I was so happy. You know, I said to Coach Bodo, I said, Coach, my parents will be definitely in, you know. And so what I did is I finished year 10, and then, you know, started my scholarship with the Australian Institute of Sport, but I did schooling via, you know, when you mail it back and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just did school via mailing it back to the teachers. And
now it's an online thing.
Yeah, it's an out.
Back then?
Yeah. So,
mail it?
Yeah, exactly. But it was actually an amazing time in my life, man. 17 years of age, representing Australia. I went to, you know the song I've Been Everywhere, man?
Yes.
They wrote that song about me because that was me. I was on every plane, every train. Like, we went everywhere. I'm serious. When we went out, like, because, you know, we live so far in Australia. So once we'd go overseas, we'd go from like Spain to Hungary to, and like wherever, to all these countries, and just fight in all these countries. So I was living out of a suitcase. I mean, I remember as a kid being in these facilities, and there was no washing amenities. Like, you know, like I didn't have enough money to go take my clothes to the dry cleaner. I didn't even know about the dry cleaners. So you know what I'd do? I'd fill the bathtub up and put all my clothes in there, soak them up and wash them, and you know what I mean? And then I'd like hang them up wherever I could, just hang them to just dry them. They would take days to dry because we're living in hotel rooms. It's not like we had balconies and things like that. But it was definitely a very, very fun time. Amazing journey and amazing memories.
So you did that for a number of years, from year 10, travelled around,
Yeah.
boxed around the world, young kid. And, I mean, religion, being Muslim yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me, I mean, a lot of athletes, young athletes, a lot of temptation. But yourself, you've got that edge in regards to from the partying to all that kind of stuff. Tell us about that.
Well, as a kid, man, I didn't do much partying at all. Like, you know, maybe like a party with the family, you know what I mean? But I never went to like nightclubs and that, not until I was like 21, you know what I mean? Like that was just, and that was the most random thing ever, because you get your license or whatever, and then you can go clubbing at the age of 18. But I was like, nah, it's not for me. It's not for me, because I was like so determined on arriving at becoming a world champion. And I'll tell you, when I was signed to Golden Boy Promotions, and I fought on the undercard of Sugar Shane Mosley, he booked out the Hard Rock hotel for his after party. And he's like, oh, we're going to go to the Hard Rock Hotel for my after party, and, you know, you come with me and stuff. And I was like, I remember asking my brother, Emad, I was like, Emad, can I go? And he's like, yeah, we'll all go. Don't worry, we'll all go together. And we went there, and I remember leaving there that night, and my ears were ringing, because I'd never been in a nightclub, and like
wow.
my ears were just, you know, I was like, I don't like this feeling, you know. But then I came home from America after having a couple of successful fights, and I was going to a few different nightclubs and whatever, and, you know, with my cousins and my friends. And then just one day it just ended just like that. I said, that's it, I'm not going anymore. And how it happened was, actually, we all know who John Ibrahim is, right?
Yes.
So I'm outside of one of John Ibrahim's nightclubs.
And how old were you?
I think I was like 20. I think I was 22 or 23. No, I was 22, because I still wasn't champion of the world. And my friends were all, me and my cousins were all outside of this club, and it was one of his clubs, one of John's clubs. And John was standing there with Tongan Sam, and he goes, come here. And I said, me? And he goes, yeah, you come here. And I came over to him, and he goes, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I'm just going to go out with my cousins. And he's like, they're all going to go out, you're going to go home. He goes, I'm letting everybody in by you. And I'm like, why? And he goes, because you're supposed to be champion of the world one day. You're supposed to be the future of boxing in Australia. He goes, why do you want to be in a place like this? And you know what I did? I just shook his hand, and I walked away.
Good on him.
Never again, never saw another nightclub again, man. That was
Shout out to John Ibrahim.
Yeah, that was it.
Shout out.
No joke. That was the end
Good
of
man.
it. Yeah, I just shook his hand, and I walked away. I said, you know what? This guy cares about me, man. You know
No,
what I mean?
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, okay, born in Australia, but your Lebanese background,
Lebanese and Palestinian. Half Lebanese, half Palestinian.
half Lebanese, half Palestinian.
Mm.
In regards to, did it ever cross your mind to represent heritage, or was it always Australia? Because you would have been speaking Arabic growing up in the family.
We spoke fluent Arabic at home because my dad was like very adamant. You know, we're speaking English at school. At home, you only speak Arabic. And, you know, my mum and dad didn't really speak too much English. It was more Arabic. It was broken English that they spoke. So we had to speak in Arabic. But when I was 17 years of age, man, and I was at the AIS and everything was going really well, I was flying high. I don't know what happened, man. I made a decision to move back to Sydney. I'd had enough of the AIS. After being there for like a year and a bit, I was like, that's enough for me. You know, I can't do it anymore. Living away from my mum and dad for too long, and I was just like, I want to come home. And I came home, man. And it was like one of the biggest mistakes I ever made, because that's when disaster struck that day. When I came back, my brother Muhammad was riding an R6 motorbike at the time. And I was like, man, I'm going to go get my license, you know what I mean? Because it looked fun to get a motorbike license.
And this is still at Engadine?
Yeah, now we're living in Greenacre at this time.
Greenacre. So you've got more of the culture around.
Yeah, we definitely got the culture. But I'd been Engadine and Canberra, and, you know, so like it wasn't much of it going on, but it was all right. And then I remember one day my brother Muhammad, that was just before the Olympic trials, literally just before the Olympic trials, and I was defending Australian champion. You know, and now I was going to be fighting in the state titles to go to the Australian titles again to represent Australia at the Olympic Games. All I had to do was just win this tournament and I'm going to the Olympics. My brother Mo came home with his motorbike and was like, oh, could you do me a favour? Could you wash my bike? Don't ride it though. And I'm like, oh, I won't ride it. He's like, Bill, don't ride this bike. We've got a guy coming to check it today. He might buy it and I don't want, just please wash it and leave it, just leave it parked up. So I watched it, and then the devil started talking to me. So listen, just turn it on. Just have it, like, come on, just a little.
And how old are you again?
17.
17,
I'm like,
of course.
Just turn it on. You got to hear it. So I turned it on. I was like, oh my God. How am I going to turn it off now? You ever seen the movie Lock Up? Lock Up's a movie with Sylvester Stallone, and the guy gets in the car and he's like, yo, if I ever turn this car on, I'll never turn it back on, right? And he's like, that's correct. And the guy takes off in the car. Well, that was me. I was like, I turned it on and I was like, shit, man, one lap of this around the block, it's not going to hurt me.
You'll be good. After that, you'll be sweet.
I'll be sweet. I come back and park it up. Drove it out of the driveway, turned left, a couple of houses down the street. My cousin was standing outside the house. He goes, hey, what are you doing? I said, I'm just going to take the bike. He said, you're not even wearing a helmet. I said, I know. And he goes, just put a helmet on. 1 second, I'll go get your helmet. I said, well, listen, get me one and get yourself one, and we'll go for a wrap together. So he come out with 2 helmets. I'll put one on. I go to him, listen, I'm going to go do a lap, and then I'll come back, pick you up, we'll do another lap together. And he goes, yeah, beautiful. So I took off, man. I never come back for that lap. I took off for that first lap and never came back to pick him up, man. I had an accident, man. I tore the skin off my arms, all here. Like, you still see the scarring all on my hands here.
Wow.
I just tore the skin off everywhere, my shoulders. I was wearing a pair of shorts, a singlet, and some sneakers. Some Nike sneakers, and the sneakers melted, and I was like, man, I was in a mess, you know what I mean? But I just basically blew the opportunity to represent Australia at the Olympic Games, you know what I mean? I was in a mess, and I still tried to compete at the state championships, man. But I just even though I thought I won both fights, I wasn't in the best state to compete, you know. I remember fighting against a guy called Greg Eady, and while I was fighting him, these wounds were all bleeding everywhere, you know what I mean? Because, like, you know, you hit him with the glove, it would tear it up and whatever. I was just in a mess. And, yeah, man, so that was it. That was the Olympic dream. I blew the Olympic dream. And then you talk about representing, you know, a foreign country, like either Lebanon or Palestine. Well, when Lebanon had caught wind that I had been, you know, missed out on the Australian squad, they'd come to the rescue. And then they'd knock on our door. My father was like, they sat down and I was all for it. Going to represent Lebanon at the Olympic Games. What an opportunity. Amazing. And now I'm finally going to the Olympic Games again. And when they left the house, my dad said, well, you're not going.
Really?
I said, Dad, what do you mean? I said, Dad, these guys are giving me the opportunity. I go to the Pan-African Games, and I represent them at the Pan-African. If I win, I get to go. That I can beat these African. You're not going. I said, why not, Dad? And he said, well, Lebanon did nothing for you. Australia did everything for you to get to this point. And he goes,
Wow.
it was your fault that you got on that motorbike. Nobody else's. And I was like, come on, Dad. He's like, listen, I'm telling you right now, the Olympic dream is over for now. He goes, unless you want to wait another 4 years, go to the next Olympic Games. Otherwise, turn professional. I was so disheartened and so disappointed, but at the time, I couldn't understand where my dad was coming from. But my dad had this thing like, mate, if you beat Australia in the first round, if they pull the draw out and it's Australia versus Lebanon and you beat them, how are you going to come back to your own country? You can't. Like, you're never going to have the same love that you have, like, or whatever. He just was totally against. And I couldn't understand where he was coming from in the end. And I said, all right, no problem. And then one day, because dreams come true, right? Because I always believed, if you manifest things and you believe in it, it becomes true. My childhood hero was a guy by the name of Prince Nassim Hamed. He was an icon in Australian, in the world of boxing. At the time, when I discovered Prince Nassim in 1999, he was on top of the boxing world, like flying high. I was 14 years of age, and Nas was on another level. And he was a multiple-time world champion, and he was my hero, And then I got the opportunity to meet Nas through some friends who put some things together. And once, I missed out on the Olympic Games, but if I had made the Olympic Games, I never would have met Nas. So I was like, you missed out on Olympics, but God replaced that opportunity with an opportunity to meet your childhood hero. And like, I was like, Prince Nassim was the Michael Jackson to me. Or, the Prince, the singer Prince, like people who used to be in love with him. Well, that was like, when Prince Nassim, like, I was complete as a fighter. I was like, this is exactly who I want to meet. I don't care if I meet anybody else after that. Just as long as I met Prince Nassim, I'm happy. And he gave me some advice and like sort of nurtured me in my early career. And we talk often. We even talk till now. We're still like very close friends now. So I met him when I was 17 and I'm now 37 and he and I are still like bonded like brothers.
That's beautiful. 20 years later.
Mm.
Amazing. So tell us, you turned professional.
Yeah.
Of course. And tell us about that. How old were you when you went into federations over the Olympic rankings?
Yeah. So after the Olympic game and that's it. That's gone. So you transition from the amateur boxing circuit to the professional boxing circuit. Once you turn pro, there's no going back. Nowadays,
a pro boxer can't go.
At the time of when I was fighting, you couldn't do it. That's it. If you turned pro, there was no going back.
Why is that? I thought the best countryman is you represent your country.
No. Boxing as an amateur and boxing as a professional is two different sports.
Sure.
Olympic boxing and professional boxing is completely different sports.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically, at the time, they had this rule that if you turn professional, there's no going back. And so, I never looked back. I just turned pro and kept on fighting. In today's day and age now, amateurs are fighting as pros and pros are fighting as amateurs. So if you've had under 10 professional fights, you can still compete as an amateur. They even changed the rule where if you had 50 fights, you could fight at the Olympic Games. And a couple of the professionals went to the Olympics and just were no good because amateur boxing is on another scale in terms of speed. It's like a Ferrari racing against the BMW. Professionals are BMWs, amateurs are Ferraris in terms of speed. Because it's all about scoring points.
Yeah.
Like just trying to accumulate the points, So once I turned pro, I never looked back. And I turned pro a few days shy of my 19th birthday. I was 18. And I just, if social media was around at that time, if Instagram and I took the world by storm, man. I just was on I brought the flashiness. I brought the
Must
pizzazz.
have had the motivation too.
Man, I was so determined to succeed, you know what I mean? Like I remember when I was interviewed after the fight, my first professional fight, I was like, I'm going to be champion of the world because I believed it. I really manifested it. I believed it. It was my vision. It was my goal. No one could stop me.
All right. So you've turned professional.
Yeah.
And tell us, where do we go from here? You've had your first professional fight. You've hit that interview.
Yeah.
You've put it out there to the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, they like to stay low, but you've just you've just made it vocal. You've said, I'm going to be champion of the world. What happens after that?
I was never about staying low. I was all about being out there. I wanted everyone to know who I was, what I was doing. I would approach sponsors like, I'm going to be champion of the world, and I think you should get on board. And they're like, oh, you got a lot of confidence. And I was like, oh, you're cocky. And I'm like, no, it's not cockiness. It's just confidence. I go, I know, I trust in what I'm doing. You know, I believe in myself. I go, it's a difference to being cocky. You know, and I'm not cocky. I'm just confident in what I do. And so
I love that because you back yourself
for sure, 100%.
And you put pressure on yourself.
100%.
Put it out to the world and do it.
Yeah. After 4 fights, my 5th fight was for the Australian professional title. I won that by second round knockout. I knocked out John Starmin in the second round.
Wow.
And then, you know, my 6th fight was for an international title, which was the IBO Asian Pacific title. And that was over 12 rounds. So at the age of 18, I fought in a 12-round bout. Sorry, age of 19, I fought in a 12-round bout. I won every single round, 120 to 110, the whole fight. I won the whole fight. Sorry, it was 120 to 108. Wow. I won 12-round zip. And that was my 6th fight. Then my 7th fight, another international bout. And then I just rolled on from there, you know what I mean? And then by the 13th fight, I had 13-0 with 9 knockouts. And then I went to America with Jeff Fennick to train alongside Mike Tyson.
Wow. Tell us about that. So how old were you then?
I was 21 years of age.
And okay, so from a young kid living out in Engadine, Canberra, you must have been feeling the fame.
Man, it wasn't that I was feeling famous, but I was just like, you know what, I'm on my way. I'm definitely on my way. And I was like, I had this whole thing about boxing, like boxing promised you the goods, you know what I mean, if you could get there. If you got there, you were promised the goods. You're gonna reap the rewards of what comes with it. And that was cars, houses, money, you know what I mean, the fame.
Yeah, and your religious early years of your life? Always religious?
My father always had
drugs, alcohol?
Never smoked a cigarette, never took a drug, never smoked, nothing. Never drank alcohol, nothing at all.
And we know as athletes when they get fame, the temptations.
Oh man, that was not. None
must
of
have
that
had that edge.
None of that for me, because I believe that because you see, my father instilled faith in us from a young age, and I had this thought in my head, like, if I do wrong, God's gonna punish me by making me lose a fight, and I didn't want to lose, so I always stayed completely steadfast. You know what I mean? I never dabbled in the partying, never dabbled in the drinking, never dabbled in the alcohol or the drugs or anything like that. Nothing. And all my friends were doing that, but I was like, nah, not for me.
Wow. All right. So you get off you're in America. What state?
I'm in Vegas.
You're in Vegas.
Sin City, baby.
Sin City. And you get out from the airport.
Yeah.
And you go to train with Mike Tyson.
So I remember, you know, we get to Vegas airport and walking through the terminal. I'm like, man, what the hell? There's pokie machines everywhere.
It's unreal, isn't it?
What the hell's going on? They just want you to gamble everywhere you go here.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and so you know what? That was the start of my American journey, because I brought a disc over with me that my brother Emad helped me put together.
A disco?
A disc.
A disc.
A disc, so like a highlight disc.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And my brother Emad had put it together with me with these people who had filmed his wedding years earlier. And so he linked me up and they put all my fights on a highlight disc.
There's no YouTubes back then.
Nah.
So you gotta go to the disc.
Yeah, so it's it was like a I don't know,
a tape.
Yeah, it was like 2 minutes or 3 minute highlight video, right?
Okay.
And we made did a stack of them, like 12 or 15 of them, and I just would give them out to everyone that I met in regards to promoters and that. And I remember, so I was training with Mike and that, and in between.
How was it meeting Mike? Tell us.
Amazing, man. Mike was just, he made my life difficult at the start, but then once we sort of got over that, he just became really cool. You know what I mean? Mike was Was he competing back then, or was he? No. He was done.
He was done,
but he was just doing some, you could say, training for crowds and earning some money doing that. You know.
Sure.
People don't care whether Mike fights or he doesn't, as long as they can watch him train. And it was a good time. We had a good laugh. You know what I mean? But when I was there, I was always looking about how am I gonna take that next step? What am I gonna do? I was a wheeler and a dealer. You know what I mean? I didn't just sit back for things to happen. And even though there was a lot of influential people coming around in the training sessions where Mike was training, and they could see that I was, you know, talented, I was like, I had to go out and I felt like I had to go out and make things happen myself. And so I
Yes.
remember one night, Jeff Fennick took me to a fight night, and it was Israel Vasquez versus Rafael Marquez, and they were fighting in Vegas. Shane Mosley was there, Oscar De La Hoya was there. It was a massive, massive event. And I saw, and before I got on that plane to go to America, I did my research about companies that were in America, Golden Boy Promotions, Gary Shaw Promotions, this promotion, that promotion. So I worked out who they were, and I was trying to work out how I'm going to get to them.
Because you want to get with a promoter. You were looking for that.
That's what it's all about, getting with a promoter. And so, you know, the kids that are in Australia now, they're lucky. You know, there's like amazing promoters like No Limit around who have helped Tim in that. But for me, I was in Vegas, and I had done my research about Golden Boy Promotions, who the CEO was, I knew everything. And I saw that one of the guys that was walking past, his name was Eric Gomez, and I was like, "Excuse me, Eric." He was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "My name's Billy Dib, and I'm 13-0. I've got 9 knockouts." I said, I fight out of Australia, and I said, "I just want to give you my highlight disc. Do you think you could give this to somebody to have a look at that maybe could look at possibly signing me up?" I said, "You guys have signed up my friend Abner Mares, who was on the Mexican team." I said, "I represented Australia all over the world." And he's like, "Yeah, for sure. I'll give it to Oscar. I'll give it to Oscar." What are the chances? It's a long shot. I don't think it was going to happen. A few days later, a couple of things transpired. I ended up in a Foot Locker store in Fashion Show Mall in Vegas. And one of the guys that was working in the store, his name was Joe Mee. And I gave Joe Mee my disc, because he was friends with Prince Nassim Hamed, and I got Naz on the phone and all these things, and we started speaking, and he asked me if I'd signed to anybody. I said no, and he said, "Look, I'm very close friends with Shane Mosley and Bernard Hopkins." I was like, "Oh my God, do you think you could give him one of these discs?" I said, "I got these discs at home in my hotel room. You reckon when you finish work, you can come past, pick one up, I can give it to you. Could you just post it to Shane?" And he did that. A few days later, get a phone call from Jamie saying, "Hey, look, Shane's seen your tape and I've seen your highlight video, and he'd love for you to come to Pomona." And I was like, he's like, "This is his phone number, ring him." So I rang Shane, and Shane's like, "Yeah, man, I'd love to have you come to the gym, and we could do some training." So I rang my trainer from Australia, his name was Harry Hamoud. Said, "Harry, here's the situation. Shane Moses is interested in signing me up. Do you think that maybe you could make the journey to the US and we could go together?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So Harry flew over to America. We got in a car. We drove from Vegas to California. Got to California. Met Shane Mosley. Ended up in the same gym with him, training and whatever. And then we ended up in the ring sparring. And then at the end of the spar, he was pretty much just said to me, "Listen, how would you like to be signed to Golden Boy Promotions?" And I was like, "Man, what a dream come true, And basically that was it. They signed me to Golden Boy Promotions. That's where the journey started in American boxing.
Wow. And that's the pinnacle. And that's where the money is it when you get that big signature from the big promoter? Is that kind of where it starts?
Yeah, that's where it starts, man.
Sure.
But obviously it all comes down to winning.
Yes.
If you're not winning, you're going to lose. You're going to get minimal money and you're just going to go home. You know what I mean? It's like contracts are done before bouts. So you would be like, okay, you're going to get paid 15 grand example. You know what I mean? If you lose, you're still going to get 15 grand.
Sure.
But then the next fight, you ain't going to get 15 grand. I'm just giving an example of when I was coming up in the game.
What was the kind of next big moment? I mean, you're 21, you get the signature. After that, when was the next kind of big moment for you?
23.
23, and what was going on?
23, I've already had 5 fights under Golden Boy Promotion. I've had 2 fights back at home. And then Anthony Mundine's fighting Crazy Kim at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre. And the opportunity comes up for me to fight on his undercard for the world title.
Wow.
For the IBO Championship of the world. So, obviously we had to get permission of Golden Boy Promotions. Shane Mosley made his way over to Australia. And that was probably the point where everything just started to change. You know what I mean? Like I had fought Zelani Morali for the IBO world title. It was a really, really difficult fight. A fight that I won. And I became champion of the world, man. So that was like the starting point of my life, you know what I mean? Like where things just started to turn for me.
And you've got your country.
Yeah.
In your country, you've got the shivers.
Yeah, so I've done it at home. In Newcastle, it was on a mad event. And that didn't come without its controversies because, let's just say there was a percentage of people thought that I didn't win the fight. I mean, so that then allowed the opponent to put in a protest, which then turned into a the sanctioning body had basically said to me that we needed to give Zelani Morali a rematch. Well, I was with Golden Boy Promotions, and it wasn't as easy as that. I mean, things had to be run by them, and you know, I mean, they weren't just going to let you do what you want to do. You were signed to a company. Well, they ended up coming up with a better opportunity. And that was to fight for the WBO Featherweight World Championship, which was formerly held by Prince Nassim Hamed, and he made 15 world title defenses.
And that was your hero.
He was my childhood hero, so
Yes.
I had the opportunity to fight for his title that he previously held. It was now held by a champion by the name of Stephen Loeveno, who would be making his third or fourth world title defense against me. And you know, it was a great opportunity, but it was an opportunity that I let slip. You know what I mean? Because I ended up getting beaten. That was the first loss that I took in my career.
Wow. But you were fighting the best.
I was fighting one of the best, and it was. I mean, it was a lackluster bout. You know, I mean, it was a bout that I just, you could say in boxing terms, it was a bit of a stinker. A stinker means that it was a boring fight. It was actually a boring fight, and it was a boring fight for me to be involved in because Stephen, as good as he was very good at making the fight boring. And he just knew how to slow the pace down and do it his way, and he never engaged and made the fight a little bit boring. But you know, that was my fault. I should have made some changes in the fight to try to win, but I just didn't have the desire to go to that place of death where I did in the Morali fight. I went to a place of death to win it, and I wasn't willing to do that backing up. You know, in like back-to-back fights, I just wasn't willing to go to that place of death. And funny or not, when I was in the ring and things weren't going my way, I don't know why, but I had this thought in my head that I'll live to fight another day. But I just didn't have the determination and the hunger to push to that next level to try to win.
Wow. And why do you think that was?
It's because when I fought Morali, man, like I said to you, I went to a place of death in that fight. You know what I mean? What happened, what transpired after the fight, me getting sick and just feeling like I actually felt like there was something broken in my body.
Wow.
I'd pushed that hard to win because, like I said to you, I had this thing about telling everybody that I was going to be this and I was going to be that, and that's exactly what I did in the lead up. I kept on talking about how I was going to win the world title and put all this pressure on myself. So when I was in this fight with Morali, and on the Sadia, I went to a place of death to win it. I actually did. And when I actually went to a place of death, I was hurt at times. I was rocked at times, but I was like so determined to overcome him to win that world title, and I did. But then after Morali, then you have Loeveno, I just wasn't willing to go there. There wasn't enough time to recover between fights to go to that place again.
Wow. And you're 23 at this stage?
Yeah.
What happens after that? Is it 2 losses back to back?
No, one loss.
One loss?
One loss. So the loss to Stephen Loeveno, and then basically I'm so disheartened at this point. You know what I mean? I'm really disheartened with the sport of boxing. I'm just disheartened with the few things that went down, and I thought I needed to do some soul searching, and that's when I thought maybe I'll go spend some time with the Prince. He'll help lift my morale, because that's what he had the ability to do. You know, he had the ability to just lift your morale when you were down. And I remember I was on the phone with him, and then shortly after getting off the phone with him, I get a phone call from the Saudi embassy saying that I had been invited to do an Islamic pilgrimage in Mecca. And I remember declining them, saying them, "Oh, sorry, I've actually got plans at that time," and they're the plans that I had made to go with Prince Nassim. Well, my mum was in the room when I made these remarks and said that I couldn't be able to make it, and she's like, "How dare you? How dare you do that?" And I'm like, "How dare I what?" And she's like, how dare you turn down an opportunity to visit God's home? You know what I mean? Like, you've been invited by God, not by them. This is an invitation by God. And then she was like, "I suggest you call them back right now and ask them if you can go." And I was like, "Oh, Mum," and she's like, "I'm telling you now, if you want success in your life, this is where you need to go. If you want to do a bit of soul searching, this is where you need to go." So I rang them back and I was like, "Look, I actually declined the offer not long ago." I said, "But is there any chance that I could come back?" And they're like, "Oh, we'd love to have you." "Yeah, of course." And so I ended up going on this beautiful pilgrimage to Mecca and met some really amazing people. And one of them was a woman by the name of Hajj Nada. And she sort of was like, she just took on that like motherly role while I was on this trip with her. And, you know, she told me to get out of the diary and write these things down. And she told me, I want you to label this diary the labor of love. And I was like, why? She's like, because everything you do on this trip is just for God. And she goes, it's going to be hard. It's going to be strenuous. No one's going to be able to help you. No one will hold your bags like they do in the boxing gym. No one will pat you on the shoulder. She goes, you're just going to have to grind your way through it. And it was a very, very strenuous trip, but it was a very rewarding one. And I remember being in Arafat. Arafat's a place in Mecca or outside of Mecca. And had this place. It's so holy. You ask God for what you want. And my dad was always on that pilgrimage as well, but not with me, with another group. And I saw him and he said to me, I want you to ask for anything you want. And I said, Dad, anything? And he goes, anything you want. I said, even boxing? He goes, even boxing. So, I was like, I was feeling a little bit guilty, you know, because I was like, Dad, but there's a lot of people out there that are starving, that aren't living the best life. And here I am, I'm going to ask God to give me another world title, you know. And it's like, just ask for whatever you want. And that's exactly what I did. I just asked God for, you know, to forgive my sins, to forgive my siblings, to, you know, to give anyone who's gone through hardship ease. But I said, God, but while I'm at it, do you think you could give me another world title? Could you just put me in line with somebody that could take me to another championship? And upon returning home, that's when I linked up with Billy Hussein. And, you know, the next 10 fights was an amazing journey. Billy Hussein had a rule that we wouldn't fight for a world title until we've had 10 fights together.
Wow.
By the 9th fight, we were ranked number 1 and on the verge of fighting for a world title. And the 10th fight turned out to be for a world title. And that's where I won my second championship of the world by beating Jorge La Sierva, who was from Mexico. And it was just a life-changing moment, man. A complete life-changing moment. Like, winning the IBO world title was one thing, but winning the IBO world title was just on another stratosphere.
So which was sweeter? It was the second one?
The second one, definitely. It was such a sweet moment, you know what I mean?
And how old were you then?
And I'll tell you now, the only thing that outdoes that moment is the birth of my son. That's the greatest moment of my life, man. Like, when I watch it back, and I see, like, forever in history. And to be mentioned in the same sentence as great champions like Johnny Famishon and Jeff Fennick as the only featherweight champions in Australian boxing history. Wow, man. Wow, a young kid who grew up in Engadine, told that he'd never been nothing, became champion of the world. And
same guy that got caught in the bus.
You know what I mean? Got caught in the bus.
A couple blocks away.
Everything, man. I'm telling you, it's like everything that I dreamed of came to fruition on that night. Nothing could go wrong. Nothing went wrong. Everything just fell into place. I outclassed him like we were on another. Just, he was here and I was there. There was no comparison in regards to skill set. I killed him. I schooled him, made him look stupid, embarrassed him. He had nothing. He had no answers.
Off the back of all the hardships. And at one stage, how old were you then?
26.
26. There you go.
So I won my first world title at 23, won my second one at 26.
And in between, we know at one stage you signed by, was it TMT? Was that later on?
No. So after becoming champion of the world and making a few title defenses, I was fighting in a non-world title bout, and my brother Imad came up the corner and he said, listen, it was a tough fight. It was a tough fight, man. This Mexican come to win. Man,
what age was this, sorry? Was this the 26?
This was now, I was 27 or 20. I was 28.
Okay.
27 or 28.
So you're still world champion?
Yeah, I'm still world champion.
Okay.
And then I was 28, and my brother comes to the corner and says, listen, you got to win this fight, man. I got some big news for you. You got to win this fight. And I won the fight. I won on a wide points decision, but it was a cracking fight. It was fight of the year in Australia. Well, I ended up going on a little bit of a holiday, and during my time on holiday, my brother Imad said to me, remember that thing I told you about and whatever? I said, yeah. He said, I need you to get back on a plane, man. Or matter of fact, can you fly from Dubai to Vegas? And I was like, nah, I think it's best that I just fly home and then we'll just work it out from there. I flew back to Australia, and then my brother told me that TMT Promotions, Floyd Melbourne and 50 Cent wanted to sign me up to TMT Promotions, and they'd sent some flights for us, and everything was going to be amazing. So Imad and I arrived into Vegas.
And what were your thoughts when you heard that? Because you've won, you're world champion.
Yeah,
you would be making some money.
Man, it was crazy because years earlier in when I was fighting for Golden Boy Promotions, I fought on the undercard of Oscar De La Hoya versus Floyd Mayweather.
Okay.
And I remember running into Floyd in 15. Floyd had seen me fight that night, and he pretty much said to me, "Listen, when you're a free agent, come and see me." And I was like, "Wow, man, that's really nice coming from Floyd." You know, he just beat Oscar De La Hoya, and he's telling everyone in the crowd, like telling everyone that's in the change rooms that I'm the future of boxing. He's like, "Yo, I just seen that kid on tape, man. I seen that kid on the screen. He's the future of boxing." I was like, "Wow, man, that's big coming from Floyd." You know, total confidence booster, right? A couple of years later, I win the world title against La Sierra, and one of my best friends and my childhood best friend and my cousin Ahmed, I said to him, "I'm going to take you to Vegas for a holiday." So he and I go to Vegas for a holiday. We run into Floyd in Vegas, and he's like, "I know you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Billy Dib." I'm like, "Hey, Floyd, I'm champion of the world now." And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "I'm the IBF champion." He's like, "All right, we'll be in touch." And I was like, "Do I need to give you my number or anything?" He's like, No, we'll get it. We'll be in touch." Because he was doing the grand arrivals because he was fighting Victor Ortiz. Man, what a buzz! But I never thought he'd call. I just never thought anything of it. But I was like, "Man, this is cool." Floyd's giving me props, taking photos with me, you know, in front of all these media people. So I'm getting my props, and I'm like, "Man, this is amazing." When we get to Vegas, he's just been incarcerated for domestic violence. So he's given 50 Cent instructions on what to do and who to sign up to the company. So at the time, they were speaking to me, they were speaking to James Kirkland, they were speaking to Andre Durrell, and they were speaking to Eureka Gamboa. And they pretty much had told me that they had them guys on the roster. And then, you know, we get to Vegas, 50 Cent's whining and dining us and just looking after us.
You get off the plane and what happens? You're back in Vegas. What
in
happens
Vegas,
then?
we go back to a hotel called the M Hotel. Me and my brother, we freshen up. I was really tired because I'd been doing loads of flying from Dubai and that. My clock was completely off. And then we arrive into Vegas and man, we get taken to this hotel. We get picked up, taken to this hotel called the M. We're told that 50 Cent's going to come see us later in the evening. A couple of hours later, my brother wakes me up from sleep and he's like, "Listen, we've got to get ready. 50's going to be downstairs in like an hour." So get ready, and then we go downstairs, man. There he is, 50 Cent's there. He's turned up in a Rolls Royce, Lamborghini. He's got a Ferrari with him. All the color, every color of them was blue. All of them were blue, like a midnight blue. It was awesome, man. And then
And how was 52 when you first saw him?
I was like, "Hey, 50, you remember me?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Where did we meet?" And he's like, "I met you at on the undercard of De La Hoya versus Mayweather." He's like, "Don't worry, man. We've been keeping tabs, you know what I mean?" And I'm like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah. And we know you're champion of the world and everything now." And I'm like, "Man, that's awesome." So I was like, "Can we take some pictures?" He's like, "Of course, we're gonna take loads of pictures."
You're rolling with him.
Man, my brother and co-manager who's looking after us at the time is Mike Altamira. They get in the Rolls Royce. Me and 50 get in this Lamborghini. So he riding shotgun with 50 Cent in a Lamborghini. People are like driving past us, taking photos of him, and like, you know how he he's doing all these signs to him and stuff. I'm like, what the hell? I'm in the car with 50 Cent rolling, you know.
The boy from Engadine.
Boy from Engadine, man. I'm in a Lamborghini, sitting shotgun. No joke, you know. It was amazing, you know what I mean. He took us out for some Chinese food, had an amazing night.
And tell me, because I mean that party culture out in Vegas, how does that sit with you? I mean, did these boys want to drink? Did these boys want to think?
Yeah.
How does that work?
They wanted to do all that, man. But so what happened was when we went to Vegas, it was the month of Ramadan. So me and my brother Imad were like fasting, you know what I mean? So it's like the month of Ramadan. You mean like if you do anything while you're fasting, like you communicate with girls in a disrespectful manner, that like, you know,
good.
Yeah, so basically you can lose your fast by just, you know, doing, you know, whatever it is, you just got to live, you know, accordingly and just don't do anything wrong. Don't, you know, like lower your gaze. They say, like, say if you see a pretty girl, don't like stare at her and do things, just lower your gaze, you know what I mean? And so after this Chinese food, 50's like, "Let's go for a little drive." So we get in the cars again, we go for this drive, and you
do a good 50 Cent accent, I must say.
We end up at this like a factory place. massive factory. And I'm talking about Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Bentleys, everything is parked outside of this place. I thought we were at a car show. I'm like, man, this is a cracker. Look at all these cars, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking, man, like just, I'm buzzed, you know what I mean? I couldn't believe it. I'm hanging out with 50 Cent, you know what I mean? And then he opens the trunk of his car and he pulls out a brick of money like this. And the brick of money is all $1 bills. And I'm like, I was just thinking, why the hell would he be carrying $1 bills? Not thinking any of it. We get to the store at this place. This guy checks us over with like a screen. I do like screen you to make sure you got no weapons or anything like that. It's really dark. And as we're walking through and there's like a tunnel and then eventually it opens up and it's a freaking strip club. It's the month of Ramadan and we're in a strip club. Me and my brother Emad and Mike. Me, Emad and Mike. And 50 Cents just paid $10,000 for this table. And they're bringing alcohol and whatever. Like they haven't brought it yet, but they're gonna start bringing it. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting down with my brother, and like girls are like coming around. I'm like, man, bro, it's the month of Ramadan. And he's like, I know, we got to get out of here. And I'm like, we need to tell him, man. We need to tell him that we need to bounce, you know. So 50 comes and sits next to us. So 50, look, man, we really appreciate, you know, the gesture and everything like that, man. It's very nice of you to want to take us out, but look, man, it's the month of Ramadan, and you know we're Muslims. We don't do these things, man. We don't come to places like this. And he's like, "Let's go, man."
Your religion was tested that night.
Yeah,
you got 50. You've got.
He's like, "Let's go," and all I could think in my head was like, "Man, I've just been begging God for this to be a successful partnership, and this is not looking good. It's not looking good, you know what I mean? I'm thinking this is not good, you know. It's that they want to do the partying, and I don't want to do any of that, you know. Anyhow, so to 50, you stay and we're gonna leave. Can you just get your driver to drive us back to the hotels? Nah, we're rolling together. What do you mean? He says, we're in it together, you know what I mean? So we're walking out of this strip club, get in our car, and then this girl walks up to the car. She's like, "Yo, 50, where you going?" He goes, "Yo, baby, you lucky it's Ramadan." Right? Just like that, man.
That's great.
And we had a laugh. We had a little joke about it. We tried to talk to him a little bit about why we didn't want to be there, about the faith and about Ramadan. He was pretty respectful, man. He took it pretty cool, you know what I mean? He just dropped 10 grand on his table and he'd give it to his mates to just party up, you know? Anyway, we ended up going back to the hotel and he said to us, "We'll meet up tomorrow to start talking about the contract and what we're going to do." So we sat down with him the following day for a few hours, and after a few hours of back and forth and whatever negotiating, we ended up signing a 3-year deal with TMT Promotions and 50 Cent, which was just at the time was like mind blowing, you know what I mean? Anyhow, so then after signing the contract, I'm sitting in the lounge room with 50 Cent. He's like, "Yo, Billy, come with me for a drop for a second." I'm like, "Just me?" And he's like, "Yeah, just you, come out." So I go outside and he opens the trunk of his car. He opened up the Bentley. Tipped out this backpack. A couple of things fell out of the backpack. A couple of watches, a couple of bricks of money. Picks up one of the bricks and he passes it to me. And I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "That's your sign-on bonus." Gave me a brick of money, bro. It was like 100 G's. He goes, "That's your sign-on bonus." I couldn't believe it, man. I was like, shit, man.
It's probably sweeter because it came from 50.
But I was like,
the way it happened.
But in my mind, I'm like, man, I really made it. I mean, I made it. Like, this is a life-changing moment, you know?
And this is less than 10 years ago now. You're 37?
Yeah.
37. You were 27, 28 then?
Yeah.
So you must remember it like yesterday.
Man, I remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, I got photos of it. I got you know, like I was like, 50, can we split the money, take pictures and whatever, you know? You know what I mean? And at the time, like I said to you, Instagram wasn't a thing back then, you know what I mean? It wasn't nothing. It was nothing, you know what I mean? So like, when I'm like, man, if Instagram was a big thing back then, I would have had millions of followers, man. Because I'm hanging out with Tony Yayo, with like G Unit. I'm hanging out with 50 Cent,
Floyd,
all of them, man.
Wow.
And then what happens is everything sort of falls to shit or goes to shit after.
Tell us about that.
Floyd Malver gets out of jail and 50 Cent's been up to some mischief with, I think 50's been up to some mischief with Floyd's partner. Floyd doesn't like the way he's been dealing with things while he's been incarcerated, and then him and 50 part ways. It becomes like the most, I don't know, you could say it's like really publicized. It's a complete mess.
Of course.
I get caught up in the middle of it. My contract has a 50-cent signature on it, has mine, has Floyd Malver's name on it, but no signature because Floyd's incarcerated.
No love.
So, and basically I'd taken a gift for 50 cents, taken the gift of the money, and, I'd bought a car with some of the money, and just a complete mess. Couldn't get the money back to give 50 cents, and then in the end, spoke to Floyd, asked him if he'd, try to buy my contract off 50. He was like, look, man, just give him back what he's giving you and we'll work it out. And I was like, I can't. I don't have the money to give him, Cars, like, if when you buy a car, I was like trying to explain to Floyd, when you buy a car in Australia, you can't just take it back to showroom. They don't give you the same money for it, you know what I mean? Long story short, man, I ended up with 50 cent promotions and SMS, and, when 50 thought he was outsmarting Floyd was always playing him like a yo-yo, you know what I mean? 50 Cent rang me up, said, I got you on this amazing card, on the undercard of Miguel Cotto versus Austin Trout, Madison Square Garden, you're going to fight Jason Velez. Everything was like high flying. I'm like, man, this is amazing. Not till Floyd got his hands on my contract and contacted Showtime and all the big networks, HBO, and basically said to them that if you work with Billy Dib, you can forget about ever doing anything with me, So they basically blacklisted me, man. And so I couldn't fight on any big networks and was having problems, you know what I mean? Next best thing was...
it's all very artificial because you just went from
I went
brother.
From the highs.
Yeah. And it was just like dropped.
And I'm champion of the world at the time.
Yeah. And this was all about money. It wasn't
just
money.
It was just a mess. It was like... I remember thinking, man, I'm champion of the world. How am I being treated like this?
Yeah.
Why is this happening to me? You know what I mean? What have I done to these guys? You know what I mean? It was a mess. But anyway, look, it was all part of the journey.
That's it.
It all accumulated to who I am today. It all helped me overcome certain things that I've gone through in my life.
Yes.
So it builds a resilience. You know what I mean? Like when you go through all these things, and then, obviously I lost my world championship, which was devastating. Then I spent the next couple of years trying to get it back by winning it back, and just, boxing is one of those things, man. Like when I was still in my prime, but the devastation of what had happened to me had like sort of dampened my soul. You know what I mean? Like I was winning, but then when I get to the big top tier fights, I just couldn't pull it up. I just couldn't pull it off. For the fights, like I lost the rematch to Gradovic. Then I lost the world championship opportunity against Takashi Miura. Then I fought Tevin Farmer for the world title, and like boxing is not one of them sports. It's not like they say wine gets better with age. Well, with boxing, you don't get better with age. You know what I mean? With age, you sort of start to decline. You know what I mean? And you're still good, and you can still beat that middle class opposition. But then when you get to that top tier, and they were your age of when you were like 25, 26, and they had the same hunger, it's hard to beat them, man.
So when did you kind of settle down with the boxing? What age?
I never settled down.
You never, did you?
My
I was watching you on TV a couple of months ago.
Yeah, my journey with boxing settled down when the minute I got diagnosed with cancer.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, man. So obviously, as you know, and it's a pretty publicized thing now that I've been dealing with cancer. I was dealing with cancer. I'm in remission today, thank God.
Remission, it was only a couple of weeks ago.
That's right, March the 6th.
March the 6th.
A date that I'll never forget. March the 6th, man.
So when you first, how did you know you had cancer?
I was sick, man. I had trained in the gym. I got hit in the stomach and felt like a pain that I'd never felt before. And
was that from that professional fight, your previous one? No, it wasn't that. It was a training session.
Yeah, it was a training session. But
okay.
I started to feel like some serious pain, and started to alarm bells started to go off in my head. There's something wrong, you know what I mean? Like I'm just feeling this pain for about a week, and then finally go to the hospital, and there's a bit of neglect from the hospital, and then the next day, my brother Muhammad's like saved me, you know what I mean? He rings me and he goes, mate, how'd you go to the hospital? I said, MD, I didn't do too good, man. I'm not well. And I basically said to my brother, I said, look, I don't think I'll see tonight. I think I'll be dead by the end of the night. I'm in like really excruciating pain. There's something going on in my stomach. I'm not sure what it is, but I don't think I'll see tonight. And he's like, man, I'm not going to let that happen to you, And so he rang a friend of his named Dr. Pran. And Dr. Pran took me really serious when I was telling him what was going on, and he goes, mate, get in the car and go straight to Norway's private hospital. I've got some friends over there that'll look after you. And that's exactly what I did. I went to Norway's private hospital, and that's where the journey started, man. Far out, the pain of like cancer and the treatment.
So how did it happen? Like when they first told you, what were you doing?
I was in the hospital.
You're in the hospital.
I was in the hospital, and I was just been woken up from doing an endoscopy and a couple of scans, and doctor woke me up. His name was Dr. Bahin, and he goes, mate, I don't want to alarm you. He goes, but we found cancer in your colon. We're gonna need to operate on you tomorrow morning. And I was like, all right. And he's like, we need permission. So they contacted my brother Jihad and my wife, because my dad was in the hospital at the time. We didn't want to worry my dad too much. Got the permission, did the operation, and the following day, doctor, I think his name was Dr. Sanjay, come into a room and said to me, look, we have removed the colon cancer, and we've cut a 9 centimeter diameter. He goes, five centimeters of that was the cancerous tumor. He showed me some photos, and he goes, but I think we need to do a bit of chemotherapy just to clean it up. And I was like, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do the chemotherapy.
And why is that?
I was just against it, you know what I mean? Because, chemotherapy had, taken my wife, who passed away in 2015. She had died from complications. And then my uncle had passed away from leukemia in 1996. So I was like, I'm not going to do no chemotherapy, you know what I mean? And I'd done my research on chemo and what it does. And, I was like, I'm not doing it, And so then, I think, but it's crazy, man, because, before I got diagnosed with cancer, I was just sort of, you live your life, but you're part of the system. You're part of a number, like we all live like that, you know what I mean? We get up, we work to live, you know what I mean? That's what it is. We work to live, you know what I mean? We don't enjoy our lives too much, you know what I mean? We just often, we might go on a holiday here and there, but really it's like you grind, all you're doing is grinding for the whole year, you know what I mean? Just grind. So, the minute I got cancer, it was like all I wanted to do was survive. You know what I mean? Like now I'm trying to find a way to survive, and so we do this operation. Whatever, the cancer's gone, go home, recover, whatever. I recovered for 1 week in the hospital, another week at home, and then the second week on a Friday, I'm out. It's like this thing comes back with a vengeance. And that's when they found out that they had misdiagnosed me, and I actually had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer, which is a cancer that attacks your lymph nodes. It's a blood cancer. And mate, let me tell you, like the doctor comes in and sees me and says, mate, do you know what you have? And I was like, no. But he knows that I've basically said that I don't want to do no chemo. He knows because the doctors talk. And then he said to me, by the looks of things, and he goes, and for what I know about this cancer that you have, he goes, you probably got about 6 months. And I was like, 6 months of what? And he goes, 6 months of life. And I was like, wow. I just like sort of looked at him. I didn't tear up or anything, but then I turned around and I looked at my mum. My mum was like sort of crying and stuff. And then I said to him, how do I turn 6 months into 6 years, 60 years? And he goes, you need to do chemotherapy. And I said, all right, well, listen, I said, in the faith of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad says, tie your camel. So I'm going to tie my camel, and I'm going to take the chances on chemotherapy, and let's just see what happens.
Did you ever have doubt getting through it?
When I first agreed to do the chemotherapy, I thought, man, I'm toast, you know what I mean? Because I had friends that had died from it. My friend had died from, I had friends that have died from sickness and stuff, from cancer, and I thought, I'm toast, you know what I mean? Let me just see what I can do to get through it. But then,
what are the feelings when you're in your darkest of dark moments, and you say I'm toast? And what are your feelings? Are you looking back on your life? Are you looking into...
No.
What's going in your head?
The only thing I can think about is my wife and my son. I can think about is I've got a 3-year-old son, man. He's 3 years old. In 2 years' time, he's going to need me to walk him to school, and I'm going to be dead. So I got to do whatever it takes, you know what I mean? And so then the minute that I agreed to do the chemotherapy, I was like adamant that I was going to survive. Because I was like, mentally, I'm going to tell myself, no, you can't die. You know what I mean? When I'm feeling shit, I'm going to say, nah, you can't die. You got no choice but to get through this, man. You got a son. And that was my driving force. Him and my wife were my driving force. I was like, I can't leave them behind. I Can't leave them behind. So, like I said to you earlier, and I said, this is not just me, but I think it's the whole world. We live to work. You know what I mean? We live to work. We don't work to live. You know what I mean? Like, we just live in and work in, just trying to pay the bills, pay our mortgages, pay this, pay that, whatever. So I made a decision, you know what I mean? When I got that phone call on March the 6th and the doctor said to me, hey, listen, you're in remission. Right then and there, I made a decision that I was going to live my life. From now on in, I would live my life. I would only do what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it. I wasn't going to be dictated by anybody. I was going to turn up when I wanted to turn up and just do it my way. You know what I mean? The only two people that I was going to be devoted to was going to be my wife and my son. That's unconditional. Whatever they need, I'm there for. You know what I mean? Take me here, take me there. That's at my beck and call. You know what I mean? That's not a job to me. That's my responsibility, and that's what I love to do.
And how did you choose to live? What did your days look like? You woke up. What were your days looking like?
My days are looking like right now. I just get up and just right now, because my autobiography's come out. You know what I mean? A True Heart: The Fights of My Life, which is an autobiography that I've done with the journey of my life. Right now, I'm just doing a lot of this podcasting and a lot of interviews on TV and SBS and ABC but other than that, my time is spent with my wife and my son. You know what I mean? And I just I know that this storm's gonna pass now, because this is a bit of a storm right now. You know what I mean? To just come out of the cancer and then the book drops and then you're so busy and everything's going on.
It must be chaotic right now.
It's all good, but it's keeping me busy, man. And it's good. It's keeping me busy and letting me do what I want to do. Like this book's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, because you see, this book's not just about me, but it's about my family. It's about the legacy that I've had, and I always wanted my father to be around when I dropped this book. I wanted him to see that one of his sons had an autobiography written about him, and I expect this autobiography to do extremely well. They say that a bestseller is 10,000 books. I expect to do that, no problem.
Wow. There you go. And in the case you didn't have a son and a wife, etc., do you ever think, would you fear death, or with your religion, do you think, okay, post death on this planet, there's after? Would you still fear death?
No, I don't have no
religion.
Fear. I don't have no fear of death. Even when I was starting this journey, I had no fear. I was like, God, this is either going to go one